The Secrets of Star Trek is brought to you by the Star Quest Production Network and is made possible by our many generous patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit sqpn.com/give. You're listening to The Secrets of Star Trek episode number 42.
Captain to bridge.
Spock here.
Make it so. Surrender is not an option.
Attention crew of the Enterprise, this is James Kirk.
We are all explorers, driven to know what's over the horizon, what's beyond our own shores.
We would have helped you get home if you had asked. That's who Starfleet is.
Hi, I'm Dom Bettinelli, and you're listening to The Secrets of Star Trek, where we discuss the hidden layers and deeper meanings found in all the Star Trek TV series, movies, and more. And someday, yes, we will talk about Star Trek V. We'll do everything. But today we're discussing
people like that. They might stop listening.
I actually saw a really good discussion of why the opening scenes of Star Trek V are really good. I'll have to make a bookmark of that one.
Opening scenes.
Yes, that's the key.
Exactly.
Be that as it may, which is a whole other topic. Today we're discussing Star Trek Discovery's latest episode, Perpetual Infinity, which, as I just said before we started recording,
it's kind of oxymoronic.
Yeah, it's twice as good as regular Infinity because it's perpetual. Joining me today on the panel, as you've already heard, are Father Corey Stika. Hi, Father Corey.
How's it going, Dom?
Very well. And Jimmy Aiken. Hi, Jimmy.
Howdy, Dom.
So people remember to like The Secrets of Star Trek on Facebook, where our Facebook page is facebook.com/StarQuestMedia. Retweet us on Twitter, where we're at SQPN. Leave us comments in those places because that helps to create a sense of community and discussion. And we will read your feedback in the podcast, like we're going to do later on in this episode. At the end, we have some feedback we'd like to share with you. So please send us your feedback. And you could also, please, if you have not yet done so, subscribe in iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, TuneIn, your favorite podcast app, or on YouTube, where you should hit the bell to get notifications of new episodes. And of course, share the podcast with your friends, with your Star Trek loving friends, and even the friends who don't love Star Trek yet. This will help them love it even more. It is only by you sharing it with people, really. I mean, we try to get it out there, but really the number one way that a podcast grows is by listeners sharing the episode, they're liking it, posting links to it on social media, emailing their friends, bugging them to subscribe, grabbing their phone from them, opening up the podcast app and subscribing for them in the app. That works too.
Kidnapping them in remote mountain cabins and making them listening.
Yes. While they're sleeping, put their finger on the fingerprint reader to open their phone and subscribing. All that stuff is we just love when you do that. And if you can write reviews in iTunes podcast, don't break into your friends' homes. I'm not advising you to do that.
And don't literally kidnap.
Don't kidnap people.
We do not endorse anything that is illegal or immoral.
Yeah. Don't commit crimes in your enthusiasm for the podcast.
That's right. So let's move on to the discussion of this episode, which is a continuation of this story that of the Red Angel in Star Trek Discovery, the second season, and we pick up in the teaser with a little bit of what we've been teased with of Michael Burnham's history from the beginning of the series, the first season. We see the attack by the Klingons on the colony where her parents and she were living, her family.
Daktari Alpha, where her parents were killed, and then she ended up becoming a ward of Sarek's family and Spock's foster sister in that case, or adopted sister. I'm not sure how they convey it in the series. So what we have is we open with the mom. She's a scientist. We found out before in the previous episode that she was the creator of the Red Angel time traveling suit, and the Daedalus Project it was called. And they're waiting for this supernova to go up of this nearby star that will provide the energy for the time crystal to do its thing. We have one of the things I was wondering is if they're far enough away from the star to be safe,
how are you close enough to harvest the energy from it?
Yeah, and why do you need supernova energy anyway if you have antimatter reactions?
Because don't you know that the supernova is so much more powerful than antimatter because reasons.
Yeah.
Right. So Michael's mom. Go ahead.
By the way, a couple of notes about this place. So the planet they're at is a Vulcan science colony or something on this place called Daktari Alpha. And they spell it like the word doctor with an I on the end of it, Daktari.
With an A and an I.
Yeah, okay. But I can't help but wonder if this is an allusion to a TV show that was on opposite the original Star Trek called Daktari. It was a family drama show set in Africa, and Daktari is Swahili for the word doctor. And I know this was a popular show at the time, and it was on the same, it was like 1966 to 1969, the same years. And I can't help wondering if this Daktari Alpha is a tribute to that somehow.
How is it spelled? Like D-O-C-T-O?
No, Daktari. But it's a loan word in Swahili for the, Latin English word doctor.
Wow. I can't imagine that that's coincidence. Or at least
it seems really close. And especially since like Michael and her family are of African descent, I just can't help but wondering, is there some connection there?
I mean, at least connection to the Swahili word, maybe. Yeah.
Also, the actress who's playing young Michael Burnham is clearly more than 10 years old.
Yes.
And it seems to have grown since we last saw her a few episodes ago.
Yes. The problem of having child actors on your show. The same thing happened with Worf's son, Alexander.
She is the Red Angel. She's moving backwards in time and aging backwards like Merlin and Benjamin Button.
Played by so her mom, Gabriele. It took me a while to remember what this is played by Sonia Sohn. I think is how you pronounce it. She's been she was on The Wire. You may if you watched The Wire, she was on that. And she's done some other things as well. But so she tells Michael at one point in this teaser scene, the universe has its own way of telling time, he says, which is, of course, foreshadowing of
very wibbly wobbly.
Yes. Very. So then it turns out this was a memory dream of Michael, who wakes up in sickbay disoriented because if you remember, she at the end of last episode, they killed her in order to make the Red Angel show up to save her. And so she was in a bad way at this. And
for some reason, having just remembered what happened to her when her parents died, Michael does not wake up saying, wait a minute, if my mom was supposed to have been killed by Klingons, why didn't we ever have a body?
Yeah.
She, for some reason, apparently that has not occurred in the last 20 years of her life.
Or her dad's body, apparently, because she now wonders if he's alive. Her Michael, by the way, is they don't come out and say it, but she's named after her dad, who's also Mike.
Oh, I didn't notice that. Okay.
And for people who wonder, Michael is actually there's a tradition of naming girls Michael. I mean, it's not it's uncommon, but it's not like a new thing.
It's not. Yeah. Last season when they introduced Michael and they have Tilly going, oh, I've never met a woman named Michael before. And I go, you don't get out much, do you? Or I've met women named Michael. It's sometimes spelled a little differently, like Michal, but it was actually a woman's name before it became common in English as a man's name, because David's first wife in the Bible is named Michael.
Right. The Olivia, the woman who played Mrs. Walton in the Waltons. Ask your parents, kids. Her name was Michael Learned. But what you often see now is that the women will use Michaela or Michael with an A on the end. But I just wanted to mention that because I've seen some people bring that up. The oddity. So
our Michael though is like surprisingly reality resistant. So last episode it was like your parents were secret agents and scientists. No, they were scientists. No, they were secret agents and scientists. No, they were scientists. They weren't secret agents. It's like, Why is that so hard to get down? And then in this episode, your mom is still alive. No, she died.
Well, I have
come
to
on,
say,
this is good news. Work with me on this when your mom is alive.
I think I found it kind of real because she's disoriented from dying, from waking up in sick bay. She thinks she's had this memory of her mother, and I found the disorientation in here, like the denial. Like you're gonna hope and then deny it because you don't want to get hurt by the hope being quashed. I don't know. I found that kind of real. I liked it, but
I'm glad it worked for you. It didn't work for me.
Okay.
I'm getting tired of this happening with Michael. Just like earlier in the series, I got tired of Michael not saying what she did to Spock, and it kept coming up. And now we're having a pattern of her denying reality, being shocked over things that are true that she doesn't need to be shocked over. I can't help wondering, is this going to be like she beams down to a planet and it's like, no, I was just standing on the Discovery.
Yeah. Well, they've taken her character in such emotional swings. Last season, first season, she was almost cold and distant, and now all of a sudden she's overly emotional, and it's just back and forth. They're not really giving her a lot of balance.
What's more significant, we should talk about the giant mitochondrion in the room. So they wake her up and it's like, but wait, aren't I supposed to be the Red Angel? And they're like, Culber is like, there are significant biological similarities between mothers and daughters, especially the mitochondrial DNA. So that's either more misdirection about the fact Michael is going to end up in the suit, or in which case, it's if they're serious about that they couldn't tell the bio-neural signatures that were so good even machines can't fake them, that this was Michael rather than her mother, then it is really bad writing. It's like, okay, fine. If you wanted to say, well, it's got your mitochondrial DNA, if that was what you set us up with last episode, so it must be you, I'd go, that's every female in her family is going to have the same mitochondrial DNA because it's only inherited from the maternal line and it doesn't mutate freaky fast.
Right.
So that wouldn't prove it.
They went from saying last episode that the bioneural signature is so unique, so special that an AI, an advanced system, could not possibly ever fake it, to well, moms and daughters are a lot alike. Come on, that's incompetent. This needs to be more misdirection, and frankly, it's even lame as misdirection, because they should go, well, okay, yeah, you're right. We did have your biosignatures, so guess what? You're still going into the suit at some point. Right. And by the way, Hugh is back on duty. Dr. Culber is back on duty, which is interesting to see him there. And he brings it up that he's back on duty. Pike then gives the mission logs from the time suit to Michael.
Also, Michael in sickbay has a headache because she's been exposed to tachyon radiation. Really? Tachyons are particles that if they exist, they move faster than light. So they're flipping through your body faster than light, not interacting with normal matter, and that gives you a headache?
Well, there's also the fancy perchlorate dust and carbon monoxide and everything else you had to deal with. So
I would think, the toxic asphyxiation, if I could say that, would be more likely to give you a headache.
Exactly.
So she gets the mission logs from Pike, and that gives her and us the opportunity to sort of get a quick review of everything that happened from Gabriele's point of view, right up to where we are. So she goes through that. And
as she does that, so we see the attack of the Klingons, which was to get the time crystal in the suit and everything. And Mom is like, okay, I'm going to get in this suit. I'm going to jump back in time. I'm going to thwart the Klingon attack. And as she's doing that, the Klingons come in and blast her. So something goes wrong with the time jump. And she looks at her wristwatch thing, and it's 950 years in the future. It's almost time for Calypso.
Right, except everybody's dead. Right. So it's not quite the same timeline as Calypso. So that was a little confusing. Well, and so let's be clear. Was it the Klingon attack that made things go wrong? Like I wasn't clear on why exactly she didn't go where she wanted, or is it because she jumped without getting the supernova energy?
Because the TARDIS navigation circuit was faulty. Oh, I mean, I think that's one case where you could really headcanon this. Either you could say that the blaster energy, the energy from the Klingons disruptor, I guess, caused the suit to malfunction and send her to the future. You could say that the time crystal actually came from 950 years in the future. You know, I think there's a lot of headcanoning that could go on there, but I didn't think it was clear within the episode itself why she ended up there.
I just assumed because she was blasted at the moment of transport.
Yeah. Well, because except there was no damage or to her when she jumped. Well, then there's the whole question of
feeding in extra energy to the jump from the disruptor.
Why was she? Why couldn't she stay? Like, why does she keep getting pulled to the 950 years?
This is the one of the big conceptual problems with this episode is, and they keep referring to it wrong. They keep saying she's being pulled back to her own space-time continuum. And it's like, no, that's part of yours. It's just a different part. She's obviously in your space-time continuum because you're interacting with her. But it's like she's, for some reason, has an anchor point that she keeps jumping back to. And the reason for that has not been set up in previous Star Trek time travel physics. So this is something new. And they don't explain it really well in terms of why this is happening to her. She's apparently like bonded to this moment or this time frame in the future in a way we haven't seen before, because we've never seen people being pulled to any specific point in the future or past before.
I mean, that's one thing they did kind of basically set up as a side effect, if you will, of the suit, is that it doesn't remain in a time but goes back to its origin time automatically.
This wormhole,
for reasons.
Are all-purpose reasons. Okay. So Leland, by the way, who I said was dead at the end of the last episode, is in fact not quite dead yet. He's only mostly dead.
I'm not dead yet.
he's alive and resisting.
Yes,
and we get this scene where he's talking to Control that is taking on holographic forms of Michael and Pike and Saru as it's talking to him, and then his own as it's talking to him, and it's like, dude, you so totally can't resist. Resistance is so totally futile.
I will say, though, those actors did such a good job as the holograms, especially Anson Mount, just having that dead look.
Yes, that flat affect that they provide to it. The AI, by the way, reveals that Starfleet has 7,000 active ships. Given that a third of their ships were destroyed during the Klingon War, that means there was something like 9,500 ships in Starfleet before the war. That's a lot of that's a big Starfleet, I have to say.
But only 12 of them like the Enterprise.
And none of them are ever around Earth when something bad happens.
Well, most of them are like shuttle. Most of those 95,000 are like 950,
9,500. Yeah,
are like shuttles or something.
Yeah, right. They're
freight haulers. You know, the poor guys who are in the junk haulers,
tugboats,
garbage scows.
Yes. So Leland, the Control knows that it can't fool anybody anymore. Like the Vulcan was as best they could do, because Vulcans without logic, without emotion, they are most like a computer, which is a nice slur on the Vulcans that we keep coming back to. But even that doesn't work.
Compliment.
Yeah. So he needs Leland's body and apparently brain to give the AI the human nuance to cross the uncanny valley, which even then it doesn't manage
quite do.
Then you have, so it injects nanotechnology into his bloodstream, which was really effectively creepy in the way it took over.
And his veins in his forehead in his temples turn dark,
in his eyes,
it's very creepy.
Yeah, that was pretty wild.
It has been pointed out that that what happens to Leland in this is very much like movie era Borg infection. And if you look at the nanobots that it's injecting into him, they have the same green-black color scheme that Borg things do.
That's true.
And his veins then turn the same colors as what Borgs do. And this is accomplishing the same effect as what Borgs do. So it has been proposed this may be tied into the origin of the Borg. Now, we know the Borg have been around since at least the 1400s, which was almost 1,000 years before this. But guess what? We've got technology that can jump you almost 1,000 years in play. So I don't know, maybe. I kind of doubt it, but it does fit if they want to go in that direction.
That would be an interesting play for them to make this a Borg origin story. It would explain why so many of the Borg look like Starfleet races, Federation races. So then we have this scene where Saru and Pike and others are talking about what do we do with Gabriele Burnham, Michael's mom, Gabriele. Saru says something about so there's these gravity disturbances on the planet, which is related to her Gabriele being pulled back to the future. And Saru talks about, did he say Newton's third law of motion or Hinton's third law of motion?
I thought he said
I thought
Newton.
it was Newton's second.
Okay, maybe
No,
I have the number
I thought
wrong.
He said second, but I thought he said third. I mean, Newton's third, but
Oh, it might have been Newton's third until he says that's my second favorite law of physics.
yes.
Yeah. Okay, so for some reason I thought he said Hinton, and I'm like, who's Hinton? But
well,
okay.
I would be nice if they did. It's because not every reference to a figure should be someone we recognize from our time.
Well, right. Well, Saru's about to do it again in a in a soon to come scene. So the AI Leland comes out of his ready room, all ready to go, and confronts
Giorgio and Tyler.
Do I want to mention here where I just realized I didn't say anything about the. No, that's coming up. All right, sorry, I got the sequence mixed up because they keep jumping back and forth. Anyway, Leland comes out. He's too direct, too decisive. That makes Giorgio suspicious, and he tries to convince Tyler and Giorgio that Gabriele is the AI control.
Yeah.
Or in some form.
He says, so Control Leland says, I saw Mom's corpse with my own eyes, and that suggests that Mom was sent here to get the sphere data, and maybe she's for Control, and maybe she's a clone or a replicant, and we, Section 31, needs to be the ones holding that data. So
Tyler has to go steal it.
Betray people. Yeah.
Right.
Because of course Leland's firewalls are so secure that no one can get into, like Georgia.
Right. So it turns out that Gabriele, she's the one. She wants to talk to Pike. She doesn't want to talk to Michael,
which is so stupid.
But Michael has this hubba wah face on her, like hubba wah. She doesn't want to talk to me. She doesn't want to see me. Which is like, obviously you'd be shocked, especially after so long not seeing her. Her argument is that she's the best to judge whether her mother is her mother, which is right.
Yeah, because you knew her when you were 10.
Well, yeah.
I think Leland would be in a better position. He at least knew her as an adult.
That's true.
They eventually, and this is, again, part of the heavy character psychology aspect of this show, but we get our scene of Michael and Mom together, and they're going after each other emotionally. And the reason that it eventually comes out for why Michael's mom doesn't want to meet her is because she has been repeatedly jumping back to try to save Michael and everybody else, and has failed every time. And so she's seen Michael die repeatedly and has had to disinvest herself from Michael emotionally so she can focus on the overall mission of saving life. And consequently, she doesn't want the emotional entanglements of getting together with her daughter as a kind of self-protection mechanism, because she doesn't want to rebond and have that as a distraction while she's trying to save everybody.
Of course, there's a flaw in that writing, which is the whole reason she's actually imprisoned in the containment field is because she came to save her daughter.
Yeah.
and that she's been coming to save her daughter in multiple instances.
Yeah. This is another big writing problem with this episode, because Pike is all of a sudden, we need to establish trust if we're going to get any answers by talking to Mom. And it's like, dude, why didn't you trust the angel last episode when you thought it was future Michael?
Right.
If it's future Mom, what's the difference? If suddenly you think you need to trust them and start a dialogue instead of trapping them?
Right. And so now we can't let Mom out because she'll get sucked back into the future. We've established a new rule here. One of the things Gabriele does tell Michael at that when she shows up is people think time is fragile, precious, beautiful, sand in an hourglass, all that, but it's not. Time is savage. It always wins. So this, and she kind of means what between her and Michael is meaningless. And Michael rejects it, says, no, you and me here now matter. I thought it was interesting. Character moment there where she's trying to break through this wall that Gabriele has built up.
I still like the portrayal of time as wibbly wobbly rather than harsh.
Exactly.
So apparently the movement of people from Earth to Terralisium, remember I brought that up last time, why would Michael have done that? It was Gabriele experimenting to see if time could be changed. And so that was the thing that told her that it could be changed. The sphere showing up was her putting the sphere in Discovery's path to keep the data safe for control. I'm not. There's a problem with this though. Is why not destroy the data? Just destroy it.
Yeah, let the sphere put the sphere somewhere it can't dump its data on somebody, and then no one will have its data.
Exactly. And that's something like now they've decided, we have to delete it, but like. Why weren't we all about destroying it before? So then there's another thing she says to Pike, which is, I know nothing about the 7 signals. So there's some possibilities here. Either she's lying, she hasn't yet done them yet, or someone else is going to do them.
And Spock mentions that it could be a third thing we don't know about yet. So my guess is the signals are because Michael.
Yeah.
And Michael is the third thing.
Well, they don't ever say that there hasn't been another suit made.
It could be Dad,
like
too.
This
sure.
one, right. This one, I mean, they show coming up here in a little bit, the time crystal being destroyed. So this suit can't jump, but they don't imply or mention at all that this was the only suit ever made.
And we don't know what happened to Dad yet.
Exactly.
Right. But I wouldn't put too much emphasis on the time crystal, because you can just have a tank of red Kool-Aid that you grow a new crystal in 24 hours. I think we just talked about a show. Yeah, I think we just talked about a show where that happened recently. Yeah.
Yes.
Delta and the Bannerman.
In the Doctor Who, yes. If we're going to be talking about time, we're going to be talking about Doctor Who as well. So get used to it, folks. She tells them that time is a living thing with will and gravity. Will and gravity.
That was a sitcom, wasn't it? Will and Gravity?
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
I was just thinking the same thing.
She then dismisses Pike as insignificant and arrogantly says that until he's willing to do exactly as she says, she has nothing more to say to him, which is just kind of like...
She is like so catty with Pike. I mean, the first thing she says to him is, I could say more about your future, but you won't like it.
Yeah.
And he says the best possible thing at that moment. We're not here to talk about me.
Yes. So they decide or she tells them that deleting the sphere data is the best thing at this point. Finally, someone's talking sense. Saru objects that deleting the sphere data is tantamount to burning the library at Alexandria or destroying the Biblioteca Corviniana, which is actually not a Star Trek thing. It's actually a real thing. It was a 15th century library of King Matthias of Hungary, which was destroyed by the Ottomans, and it was well known as an extensive, big library. The loss was a huge loss to human knowledge. So again, Saru makes references to 2 Earth events.
Things.
Apparently, bad destructions of libraries only happened on Earth. So.
Well, if he mentioned the destruction of the great Kaminar paper brain, no one would get the reference. So.
Right. Well, they usually make one reference to something well known on Earth and another reference to some future thing that nobody knows. But through context, we guess it's the same thing.
I'm surprised they didn't have something, like emotion dampening Vulcan or something like that.
Yes, the Sarek Library of Time, whatever, something. Yes. So then they can't delete the archive because the archive itself has an AI in it that protects it. It's like the greatest firewall ever. I want it to protect me from pop-ups and phishing attempts on my Mac. They apparently downloaded an alien IA into the ship's computer. Oops.
Yeah.
That's a bad idea generally. They need to update their Sophos
spyware.
Yeah, there's spyware. So then we have Box. He's reviewing the mission logs himself, and he sees where Gabriele says that Spock, his Vulcan logic training and human emotions give him the psychological bounds to comprehend her existence, and his dyslexia allows him to process the effects of temporal dysplasia. So, Jimmy, what do you feel about this?
This is ridiculous. This is, okay, another huge writing problem with this, okay? Spock is the only one who can perceive her. We've been having other people look at her all this time. Why doesn't she, why doesn't she just talk to them like she's talking to them now if she needs them to understand her? Why, if she can't talk for some reason, hand them a note. What is it? You need this balance of logic and emotion that only Spock has in order to be able to perceive or understand her. No, lady, we've been doing time travel plots for ages.
I'm just a viewer of Star Trek. I'm just a normal human being. I comprehended her existence right from the beginning. I'm not sure what the problem is. Yeah, that's kind of insulting your audience a little bit. Like, if Spock is vital, then make a reason for him being vital that actually makes sense. Spend a few minutes fixing the writing on that. That is a flaw here.
I wonder if this was almost kind of trying to patch we've made this most beloved character look really, really bad because, he went completely insane and has, learning disabilities and stuff. So let's make all that a good thing and, the best thing that this character has.
Yeah, well, then make it make sense.
They exactly. The one thing they've done is they've said dyslexia is not a failing, which Spock says, my human failing, and it's actually a strength that could save the galaxy. It's just simply a different way of perceiving reality from neurotypical folks, and so as a message, if you're gonna have a message, that's not a bad message, especially for kids, and so that part. I'm okay with. Like, Spock is, like, we've talked about this before. Spock is one of the most beloved characters, and he has this condition that a lot of kids struggle with. I think that's great that we can have that. That's fine. I'm okay with that. But this bit about the not comprehending Gabrielle's existence is silly.
Also, the dyslexia is a different way of perceiving. It's not that different. I mean, I have dyslexia. I can read. You can overcome this.
Right. So Tyler decides he's not going to copy the data under orders from Leland, which very quickly relents. It very this subordinate is being disobedient, like huge disobedience, and so but he just whatever.
Control is smart enough. It's like, okay, encountering resistance here. Switch to the other circuit. Giorgio, I need you to do something for me.
So then Michael's going to, at this point, finally, we have to have Michael confront her mom. This is the only way, I suppose. So, and they've also decided that they're going to send the copy of the data in the suit
to the future.
Oh, well, no, that's coming up. That comes up. All right, let's do that in a second. But let's talk about her. Like, as she's beaming down, Spock quotes Hamlet to her. He says, "Time is out of joint. Oh, cursed spite, that I was born to set it right." That is a quotation from Shakespeare's Hamlet. The context of that is Hamlet says this after learning from the ghost of his father that his father was murdered by his brother Claudius, and so Hamlet is cursing the weight of the obligation placed upon him, and so
to achieve justice for his father, which he ultimately fails at.
Right.
Well, succeeds but dies himself, along with exterminating everyone that we know of in the royal family of Denmark, thus causing a secession crisis and probably a civil war.
Right. So not good. That's not good news for Michael. But so in this case, Gabriele is like a ghost murdered by the Klingons, come back to place an obligation on Michael.
Yeah, something like that.
So then we have that scene we talked about where Gabrielle and Michael have that moment where Gabrielle rejects Michael, and then we have another Spock's now the wiki quote for the episode. He quotes Lao Tzu, very impressive pronunciation, by the way, much better than mine.
It was, yeah.
On how water is the softest thing, but it can penetrate mountains, which he then extrapolates. Not sure how he gets from A to B here. The logic escapes me. Into let's use time to save time by sending the sphere data so far into the future it can't be found. So once again, we have future computers that can't copy data, only move it from place to place. So they're going to assume that if you download the sphere data to the suit, the sphere AI in it will allow it to be deleted from Discovery's computer now.
Well, and don't forget too that the suit, because of quantum reasons, now has unlimited data storage.
Or Stamets says literally infinite. Literally?
Yeah.
Literally?
Because quantum.
Not literally.
Yes. Yes. As opposed to, if the suit's good, why doesn't the Discovery, I was going to say Enterprise, have this technology? But apparently future computers still have limitations.
Yeah. By the way, another piece of fan speculation that's out there is they're going to tie into Calypso by taking the Discovery. If they can't get the data off of Discovery, they'll take Discovery into the future and park it.
And then we won't have Discovery as a ship anymore, and the series will then...
I think that's the idea behind this fan theory. I don't know how much they like the series.
Yeah. Is this from one of the YouTube channels where literally if every episode of Star Trek Discovery disappeared tomorrow, they would rejoice?
Yeah. Sorry, folks. I don't think that's happening. So they will let it...
But by the way, it's about at this point in the episode, we have... So every episode, or not every, but frequently we've been having these Tilly enthusiasm lines at a moment when they've done something clever, and it's like, this is the power of math, people, and similar geek lines. And in this episode, instead of Tilly, Spock gets one where he gets to say, I like science.
I swear there's somebody on this staff. There's somebody on this staff who is like a major science geek, and he or she is trying so hard to make science geekery cool, and this is how they're doing it.
There was such a non sequitur. Like, you're a science officer. Of course you like science. I mean,
it's Spock exploring his emotional side.
Right.
Exactly.
This is also where Stamets says that sending the suit forever into the future forever is perpetual infinity, and where Spock should have said infinity is perpetual. That's the same thing.
You idiot, even the lowest order of infinity is perpetual. Aleph null, dude.
Exactly. So now we go back to Leland, the AI Leland, arguing to Giorgio that she should kill Gabrielle and steal the data. And he does it by playing on her jealousy of Michael's
because
devotion.
She's an unacceptable risk to the larger mission.
Well, also, Giorgio has a secret desire to be Michael's mom. And by owning this super suit, Gabrielle is now the most powerful woman in the universe, and not Giorgio.
Yeah. So she's a threat to Giorgio's ego.
Yeah, I'm not sure how Giorgio is the most powerful woman in the universe just because she's been in two different time dimension things. It just seems kind of weird.
That fits with stroking the ego of the character. I mean, it really does.
Yeah.
Except you're doing it in this weird way. If you as an AI are thinking this human is motivated by ego and she thinks she's the most important woman in her own emotional universe, and now this other woman is a threat, fine, use that to manipulate her, but you don't say it this bluntly to her. Right.
So meanwhile, Giorgio is suspicious. We know that as soon as he says something about the threat to the larger mission, she kind of gets a weird look. She's already suspicious of Leland's confidence so far. She beams down to Gabrielle, turns off a
data sniffer.
Yes, she turns off the cameras. Although there are Starfleet people apparently all around her from Discovery. So, but okay. And Gabrielle tells Giorgio that she knows that Giorgio would sacrifice herself for Michael, and that she's seen her do it. Giorgio tries to say, no, that's just my Prime Universe sappy, sentimental counterpart. And Gabrielle says, "Oh no, I know which one I'm talking about.
I know exactly who you are."
Yep, and that's that is an appeal to that what we've been seeing from this character, her connection to Michael and affection for her. So again, my two favorite characters in this series this season so far are Giorgio and Pike, and I just had to really enjoying both of them. And Giorgio has a good episode in this one, I think.
At the end, I love at the end of the scene when Michael beams down with some equipment to do their move the data into the suit and fling it into the future thing. Michael's toting this piece of equipment and sets it up, and it's like some kind of pattern enhancer reinforcer thing
with dark matter.
And and Giorgio just walks by it and says, "Have fun with whatever that is."
Yeah, exactly. With your toys.
That's what we know as a prop.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So Tyler's on board the Section 31 ship, notices the sphere data upload, and Leland is there, and Leland's face, I missed it the first time I watched. I saw it the second time. It shows a flicker of the nanotechnology infection, so he excuses himself to his office. But so Gabrielle, this is the big turning point in this episode. Gabrielle asks Giorgio to watch over Michael because the AI considers Gabrielle to be an unacceptable risk to the larger mission. That exact phrase that Leland used.
Dum dum dum.
Dum dum dum. I'm not sure why her use of the same phrase is so portentous.
I assume that, I assume how she learned it is because she's had 841 goes at this and has learned a lot about Control and have probably picked up that exact phrase from Control. And so when Giorgio hears her use it, she knows that that she's just heard this exact phrase from Leland, who has not had that kind of contact with Control. And therefore, he must have had unknown contact with Control, and he's been acting weird, so he's been subverted.
Right. That's kind of my impression as well. Is it was kind of like a, how did you know that he just said that type of moment?
Right. Okay. So at this point, Giorgio contacts Tyler with her suspicions about Leland, and then she threatens to hunt him down and kill him if he betrays her.
Who do you think you're talking to? I've already died before.
Yeah, at least this time I'd have time to enjoy the scenery.
I like that line. That was a good one.
That was good. Then Michael beams down, and she tells her mom that they're using these dark matter pattern enhancers to pull her out of the space-time flux with the
and put her in our space-time. It's like she's sitting right there.
and then to beam the data into the suit and send the suit into the future. And then there's this emotional moment where her mom reveals that she's watched Michael her whole life growing up and all these significant moments that we get to see. And during this emotional connection between Michael and Gabrielle, Giorgio turns off the data transfer.
And Michael is reality denying once again. It's like, how could you possibly see that? And I'm going, stealth technology,
time traveler,
surveillance, spy cam. I mean,
I was gonna say she's got her little arm-mounted spy cam. She could have just had one of them hovering, somewhere out of sight.
I want those drones. Which were an effective, actually, plot device because it allows us to see Gabrielle in her mission logs from a third-party perspective, which was much more useful.
One thing we didn't mention is she apparently in the future has a base that Control can't find because it has no pre-existing technology. So Control's apparently hunting down people based on technology. And I thought she said something about Terralisium in that connection. I may have misunderstood that, but I was going, well, if you're hiding the people on Terralisium because they don't have tech, they kind of messed that one up for you.
I don't remember her saying that, but that doesn't mean it didn't.
I may have misunderstood it or something.
Yeah, no, she did say something to the extent of that she had set up on a Class M planet where there was no existing tech, so Control couldn't find her.
Right, I do remember that part.
maybe the definition of tech, though, is the level of tech that they had on Terra Elysium was way too low for Control to have any contact with, because they only had that one transmitter device.
Yeah.
You know.
So Tyler confronts the Leland AI. He walks in and sees Leland indisposed with his face open. And
while he's regenerating.
Nanobots, whatever, going all over. He manages to stab Tyler in the gut, who has the presence of mind to call Discovery and say Leland before he collapses. Leland beams down.
All you need.
Yeah, exactly. Leland.
Rosebud.
Leland beams down, starts killing everybody. I wonder if we're going to have...
Trying to. He's not very successful at it.
He kills all the red shirts. I wonder if we're going to have memorial services for all of them.
I'm guessing not.
Only for the important officers.
Yeah.
Now in Discovery, are they copper shirts or whatever the color is on their armbands?
Yeah, I know. We need red shirts. Come on, Star Trek. He destroys the time crystal in the suit and injures Michael. But Giorgio gives him a royal butt kicking. Which is
we get this
fun.
nice Giorgio Leland battle where Michelle Yeoh gets to use her moves, and it was really fun.
That was
fun.
Yeah. Again, Michelle Yeoh was awesome. Michael, and of course, the solution here is we have to destroy the containment device, and all of us who happen to still be alive, except for Giorgio, who is distracting Leland, we all have to participate in shooting it, which means Michael has to participate in sending her mother back into time exile again, because for emotional reasons.
I will find you. I have heard that line so many times. I am tired of it.
Yes. They beam up the 4 survivors and the torpedo the base. Are we sure all the security people were dead? Just checking, because if they weren't, they are now.
Well, yeah, I assume they beamed up everybody who was still alive.
Yeah, it's the 4 to beam up. They said so. They beamed up 4.
They were beaming them up as Michelle Yeoh and Leland were fighting.
Yes.
Yeah. Unfortunately, Leland also gets away and beamed to the Section 31 ship, and
has an untraceable warp drive
and no name. It's always just the Section 31 ship. It should be the Obsidian or something.
It has a number. I think it's NC91A or something like that. I think is NCIA 93 is the call sign.
Okay, great. But if you're working on that ship, you're going to want to say something else besides its registry number. You're going to want to say the Obsidian or the Darkwing or the Spy Master or whatever you want to call it.
I think it's a little... I mean, if you call it the Spy Master, people are going to figure out what it is.
Mm-hmm.
But
they don't seem to be hiding it. I mean, it's kind of... I think of this thing kind of like it's a B-1 bomber or a B-2 bomber back in the days when those were classified.
Yeah. They call it the old 93.
Mm-hmm. It's the ship that's so classified that I have to kill you by telling you the fact that I actually work on this ship that's that classified. Kind of an unwieldy name.
Yeah.
Sometime I want to find this. There is a book of military patches for like classified programs.
Yeah.
And one of them has in Latin, I would tell you, but then you would have to be killed by me.
That's awesome.
That's pretty good. So, so the AI managed to beam out in the split second before the torpedoes hit. Tyler, for his part, managed to roll himself into an escape pod off of the ship. The rest of the crew on the Section 31 ship, well, they're toast. We could just assume that they're all going to die sooner or later. Spock says that Leland got half of the data. Michael despairs, but Spock says what has come before no longer exists. What happens next has not yet been written. We only have what we do now.
So let's waste time by playing chess.
Yes, instinct and logic together. We let them. Will let us defeat, control, blah 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 blah. And so they sit down to play chess, and Burnham contemplates her first move. Bum bum bum.
Yeah.
So much foreshadowing.
It is kind of effective. She's like reaching for the board as we fade to black.
Yes. So what will be her first move? That's the question. And we will find out.
That quote from Spock sounds so much like that cheesy thing of the present is now is a gift, and that's why we call it the present.
Didn't Winnie the Pooh say
really
that?
Bad.
Yeah.
That's what I'm sure you've heard that poem.
Oh,
yes.
I haven't.
Yeah, it's very popular among, sappy Christian circles, the same kind of people who have, the Precious Moments dolls and things like that.
I was going to say, it sounds like something you'd encounter in a bad homily.
Yes. Don't ever say that in a homily.
Not a homily I've given, but I have encountered it in a homily. So,
yeah, that's like we just had the Laetare Sunday, and the reason the robes that the vestments that the priest wears are rose, not pink, because Jesus didn't pink from the dead. Yeah, he also didn't speak English.
Oh, that's terrible. I prefer on Red versus Blue about how the second in command, it's not pink armor, it's light red.
Yes.
It's salmon. No.
Salmon. Not any better. Not any better. All right. So any more notes on this episode from either of you?
Nothing here.
Let's see. So one line that we have in this is the suit's Mom says the suit is DNA strand encoded, so it, quote, won't work for just anyone, close quote.
What about mitochondrial DNA?
Well, no, but so DNA strand encoded won't work for just anyone, but she didn't say just me. So I think that's another thing setting up, okay, maybe a family member has similar DNA, can get in the suit and use it. I think they were hopefully setting that possibility with that line. The suit and Mom, both, who is not in the suit, both get yanked back to the future, even though the time crystal is destroyed. So that suggests they have, as physical objects, somehow bonded with this moment in the 32nd century. The suit may have cloaking abilities, since Mom got to view elements of Michael's past life, or it could just be tiny spy cams. And then I mentioned the thing about Terra Elysium as a plan, or seemed to be maybe part of a plan to ensure limited human survival off planet. But if so, they messed it up by giving him, or may have messed him up by giving it tech. Finally, one thing that's not actually from this episode, but I mentioned in our previous podcast that there was a rumor that by the end of the season, we're going to catch up with the original Star Trek series in the timeline. And we might, and this was the rumor, that we might see Pike's accident that lands him in the chair. But subsequently, I think it was Anson Mount, but someone connected with the production of the show has said Pike's end will not be tragic. So we will not see the accident. According to what that statement, we won't be seeing the accident that puts him in the chair.
Well, and Gabriele did say that he was going back to the Enterprise after his time on Discovery was done.
Right. Mm-hmm. So just a little bit of feedback. We have an email from listener John Scrivo, who has a couple thoughts on season 2. It says, is the exploration of religion brought up early in the season a lost theme by this point? Was Captain Pike's early quote, in the quotation, is any sufficiently advanced alien life is indistinguishable from God? Is that the takeaway message about religion? The religion shown, that the Terra Elysium colony and Kaminar, seem to have been portrayed as fraudulent. So let's talk about that bit first. So What do you think?
I think he's right. According to what we knew, even before this series started, the then showrunners, who were subsequently fired, were very interested in exploring spiritual themes, and that has not been paid off, and we're almost at the end of the season. They did a little bit with it early on. There are rumors of significant reshoots happening in the series, and specifically around some of the religion stuff. You had, apparently some of the complaints were, and this is not my words, but there were complaints about Pike's allegedly fundamentalist Catholic faith that was originally displayed. And I'm sure that's an exaggeration, by Hollywood liberals, but apparently Pike may have been established as a believer, and then they reshot to fuzz that out and make it less obvious. We do have what seems to be evidence of additional reshoots to fuzz stuff out, because in the episode where Culber comes back from the dead, they are so avoiding the word soul in ways that don't make any sense. They talk about his energy being transferred out of his body, and now they're putting the energy back into a physical form. They're making, and no, guys, his body is made of energy. the matter is E equals MC squared, guys. So you're talking about something fun. If you're saying something left his body and now you're making a new body for it, the word for that thing is soul. And they conspicuously avoid it, even though it causes them big dialogue problems. So I think what's probably happened is they did a bunch of reshoots to fuzz out the religion elements that were originally part of this. And that's likely, it may be tied up with the firing of the showrunners.
I think it's a shame because I like to see those elements. I mean, the fact is, human beings are fundamentally, we are religious creatures or spiritual creatures. I don't think whatever the future holds, and I know that Gene Roddenberry was a secularist, but, the religion is not going away in the next couple centuries. It would be nice to see this, especially in the original series. We saw Kirk was knowledgeable about Christianity, but it would be nice to see a character who has an integrated sense of his own faith and is part of Starfleet, just like we saw the Bajorans able to do in Deep Space Nine.
Yeah, we've and other cultures in Voyager, we've had thoughtful religion episodes on Star Trek before. They're not incompatible. And in the first series, Kirk is even like when they meet Apollo, and Apollo is kind of, why are you having such a problem with multiple gods? And they're like, well, we have enough difficulty with just the one. And so obviously monotheism is a big part of their culture at this point still, if it's treated as preferable to polytheism. Or actually, I think what he says is we've always found the one quite sufficient.
I'd love to see, like you said, Dom, but that would assume that there would be people actually working on the show who have at least a personal understanding of Christianity, not saying, they're deep theological and spiritual believers or anything like that, but at least have a personal practice of it. And unfortunately, it seems, at least looking from afar, that Hollywood doesn't have a lot of that anymore. Not like it used to. Christianity or Judaism or whatever, but
I know writers historically have been interested in exploring this, and some of the writers, like on Deep Space Nine, talked about the fact that they didn't buy the dictate that you couldn't deal with humans in religion. I mean, you can do it with Klingons, you can do it with Bajorans, but you can't do it with humans. And they thought that was nonsense, but it's apparently part of honoring Gene's vision. And maybe they're a little shy about it now because they got so much pushback last season for taking Star Trek in a different direction that violated Gene's rules about you can't have interhuman character conflict among the main characters. And then we get Lorca.
Right.
Exactly.
The second part of John's email is he says, I was hoping that Areum's character would have been more developed more, considering we just figured out this season that she was even human. Actually, we just discovered like this last episode. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I would have liked to see them explore her her humanness compared to the amount of augmentation. How much tech can someone have and still be considered alive or human? I know the concept of stars having characteristics of life has been brought up on recent episodes. When you talk about stars are alive by some definitions, Jimmy. I'm a biology teacher, and I usually emphasize the cell theory and the need to be made of cells as a requirement for life. This always puts viruses and prion diseases in a gray area. How much biology of Areum remained compared to our augmentations? Should control or any advanced AI be considered alive? I do think it is a lost opportunity with Areum to explore that.
Absolutely.
I would have liked to have seen some, like we had with Data. Is Data sentient? Is he alive? But to kind of go from the other direction for someone who's had augmentation.
And with Areum, I mean, they showed at least that it was still her human brain in there, because they show them taking off the top of her
head, metal
skull, if you want to call it. But they don't show any other parts of her body having actual flesh.
I also wish they'd done more with Areum earlier. It makes the death more meaningful the better you know the person. So if you're gonna be killing her off, let us get to know her really well first. That was one of the things that Babylon 5 did nicely. In terms of how much tech can you have and still be human, just recently I encountered something where I covered that. I think it may have been in the 5th Friday Weird Question show that we just did on Mysterious World. I think I talked about that there. It depends on which parts of your body you lose. you'll still, like, if you lost everything but the brain, you would still be you. The question gets involved when you lose significant chunks of the brain, and at some point you might not be, but it gets harder to discern. Because obviously, if you replace every cell in the brain one by one with a transistor, at some point it's not you anymore.
Right. Despite everything sci-fi tells us, you can't download a brain or a soul.
Yeah. And in terms of, could you consider an AI alive? By some definitions of life, you could, because they can do things. I mean, okay, so consumes energy, yes. Evolves over time, yes. Reproduces, yes. So by some definitions, it would be considered alive. I don't think it would be conscious, though, unless it turned out that panpsychism is true. Panpsychism is this theory that that mental phenomena are fundamental, and so even like an electron has a tiny spark of consciousness. It's nowhere near what we've got, but it's got something, and therefore in consciousness and eventually intelligence can emerge out of matter. That's not the standard view of just about anybody, but it is a theory that's been proposed. If that were true, if consciousness was somehow resident in matter itself, then you could hypothetically build a machine that had consciousness. But as of right now, toasters do not seem to be conscious, and a fancy AI is just a fancy toaster.
Thank you, John, for the very good email that gave us some good discussion, folks. We'd love to hear from you as well, and I'll give you the contact information. But we love feedback, and we love to have these discussions. So, but before that, I want to take a moment to thank our patrons who make it possible for us to create Secrets of Star Trek. Today, we're thanking by name Mark C., Alan and Melissa K., Masij B., John L., and Les R. Through their generous donations at sqpn.com/give, they make it possible for us to continue the Secrets of Star Trek and all the shows we do at StarQuest. You can join them by visiting sqpn.com/give. So if you want to participate in feedback and have us read your message on the next podcast or a future podcast, please let us know by going to sqpn.com/trek or the SQPN Facebook page and leave us some feedback there, or send an email to trek@sqpn.com. We'll be back next time when we'll be discussing the next episode, which is entitled, I only just got this the other day, Through the Valley of Shadows. Yay, though the why walk
that's
the Valley
an interesting...
of Shadows. Yes.
Another not slightly bent title from something else. Points of Light.
Yeah, this is
Valley of Shadows.
Almost a psalm from the Bible sort of thing. But so that will be the next episode coming up. Until then, Jimmy Aiken, thank you for joining me in sharing the Secrets of Star Trek.
Thanks, Tom, and live long and prosper.
Father Corey Stika, thank you as well.
Thank you, Dom.
And once again, I'm Dom Bettinelli. Thank you for listening to the Secrets of Star Trek on StarQuest. And remember, time is savage. It always wins, even if it is wibbly wobbly.